guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Vanessa. I am going to be talking about my week 2 and week 3 ARC August wrap up. So as many of you know, I was sick with the COVID last week. So I was kind of down and out for the count and didn't really get to do my weekly update. I probably still sound a little nasally, at least I do to myself. But I'm going to go over week 2 first, and then I'll go over week 3. So it's kind of as if you get 2 videos in one, but I'm still updating you in terms of like each week. For the second week, my feedback ratio started at 49%, and I ended up at 50%. So I did gain some new arcs, and then I also did get a bunch off my plate. So I ended up reading 3 graphic novels, mangas, children books, things that had like pictures in them. I read 1 cookbook, I read 3 fiction novels, and then 1 non-fiction. So I'm going to start off with the graphic novels, manga, children's books that I read first. So I read I Got This, which is a kid's book. This one was super duper cute, and as someone who works in the mental health field, I would like 100% recommend this for kiddos because it teaches a lot about resiliency, and it's also just really adorable. It teaches kids how to like problem solve, and like just because you encounter an obstacle doesn't mean that like you have to stop there. Like, let's think of different ways to overcome the problem. Sometimes problems can be really big and need help from other people, and sometimes we just get really like flustered and anxious and we just need a calm down technique. So I really liked this one. Another really cute book that I read is called Korgi with a K, and I was given the complete collection. However, I do happen to own one of the books, so this is actually book 3, but it is like, you know, very cutesy, very small, but it's these like non-word kind of graphic novels. Actually, the only words that you really get are at the very beginning of each story. You have this like little frog thing, and he kind of tells you what the story is supposed to be about, and then you kind of like create a narrative in your head about what's going on. So, you know, some of it can be left up to interpretation, but these were super cute, and I obviously got this because I have a Korgi, but I figured it'd be kind of cute to collect all of these. I saw this at a used bookstore and I was like, I have to have it. But I think it'd be cute to collect all of these, and then eventually, like, if I ever have kiddos, it would be nice to just kind of sit down and like go through them with kiddos, because they are, you know, very easy to understand. You don't need to have any sort of language ability. You can just look at the pictures. I read I Can't Say No to the Lonely Girl. I probably would not recommend this one. It was a little weird, kind of like, I understand some of it was supposed to be like comedic relief, but it was just kind of a little touch of weird to it as well. So not a manga I would recommend, unfortunately. I also read I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. Not sure if I'm saying that right. This one was interesting. I really enjoyed the conversations that the author had with their psychiatrist, and I felt like this, like from the psychiatrist perspective, they were doing a really great job about battling this person's cognitive distortions. You know, they were very clearly depressed and they had some anxiety. They had questions about like, do I have XYZ diagnosis, and kind of almost like a hypochondriac kind of vibe to it. But the psychiatrist was really good in kind of explaining like, no, like, where is this thought coming from? Like, in order to have certain diagnoses, you have to meet clinical criteria. Just because you have XYZ doesn't mean you have XYZ diagnosis. And so I thought that was a really good conversation. And it was also interesting to see some of the similarities and some of the differences between the Korean and American mental health systems. I looked through a cookbook called Girl Dinner. I was obviously very attracted to this because girl dinner is just super easy and simple to make. However, because it is super simple and easy to make, I kind of felt like you didn't need a cookbook. Like, a cookbook to me feels like you need to have a sort of like set of materials on hand, but girl dinner is literally like just taking what you have left in your pantry and utilizing it, maybe in some fancy way. So like if you have leftover cheese and meats and stuff and some olives, throw it together and make a charcuterie board. But this one was like, oh, yeah, sure, you got like XYZ lying around. It's like, I don't have that lying around. That's more of a, I would go to the grocery store and get that. So it kind of felt like I was making a recipe. So wasn't like a huge fan of this cookbook. I also read the Rom-Commers by Miss Catherine Center. Really, really enjoyed this one. I actually had tried to start this one probably over the summer because I got I got invited to read this book. I didn't have to request it on NetGalley. So when I started reading it, I must have just been like in a really weird physical reading slump. Like it could not keep my attention. But then after being able to listen to the audiobook while reading along, I was able to focus a lot better and really, really enjoyed this story. Like I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely think that Catherine Center has some phenomenal writing. So another great book by Miss Catherine Center. A not so great book that I'm very glad I didn't buy, and I actually ended up just checking it out from the library, is The Au Pair Affair by Tessa Bailey. So there's nothing bad about it, okay? It was okay. I gave it a 3-star, probably leaning more towards 2.75. This one was just very basic. Like I didn't feel any emotion really towards it. I just was kind of reading it because it was part of a book club that I participated in, and I was just kind of like, meh, like I'm gonna finish it, but it didn't wow me. And then the last book that I read for week 2 is This Ravenous Fate by Haley Denning. So this one was really fun. I enjoyed it. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It follows Elise Saint, who is a Black 18-year-old living in New York during the Harlem Renaissance period. Her family is like this super powerful family in this area, and her father wants to pass down the empire to Elise. It also follows Layla Quinn, who is another Black girl who was actually once human but is now a vampire, or in this story they call them Reapers. So there's been a string of murders that happens, and Layla has been pegged as the person that is doing these killings because she's a vampire. But she's like, hey, it's not me. They go through and they try to figure out like who is actually doing these killings. Now, Layla and Elise are actually not friends at the start of this book. They once were friends, possibly lovers, but by the end you do sort of see this like sapphic story start to evolve, and I think this one ended up on a cliffhanger because there's supposed to be a book 2. So really enjoyed it, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend checking it out for this upcoming fall season. So that was all the books for week 2, and if you want any like full-length thoughts of the books, I write really in-depth reviews on my Goodreads, which is always linked down below, so you can check that out. So I'm gonna start off with now week 3. For week 3, I obviously started at a feedback ratio of 50%, and it ended at 53%. So I did get, I think, a couple of books, but not as many as last week, which last week I felt like I got so many new requests or new approvals that it was hard for me to make a dent. This week I didn't get as many. But I did not break this down into categories, but I think I read mostly novels or short stories, and then a couple of children's books and a crafting book. I'm just going to talk about these in the order that I read them. So the first book that I read was a dark romance called Once You're Mine by Morgan Bridges, and it's funny because I actually bought this book before I got the ARC. When I got the ARC, I was like, wait a minute, this book looks really familiar. I think I have this. So I started reading this, and while I do like dark romance, this one just didn't do it for me, unfortunately, and I don't think I'm gonna continue on with book 2. I'm really undecided. It does kind of leave you on a cliffhanger, and I am kind of a completionist and I want to know what happens. But this one has a couple of things that are really annoying, like a ditzy main female character. We have a really possessive main male character, which is fine, but this one was like uber possessive. There's some stalking involved. There's touch her and die. There is also like off-page 4-letter R word, and then murder, death of a parent. So it just kind of had a lot of things that I thought I would like, but the story just was very bland. It didn't really do anything for me, so I gave this 2 stars. Then I read this really cute, like, it's not a kid's book, it's more of like a kind of like a graphic novel, but more like comic strip form. So it's called Hope It All Works Out by Riza Farazmand, and I freaking love this. It was so funny. It was just like these little short comic strips that had these funny scenarios, so I'll put one up here for you. Like this one is like, I'm gonna get my shit together. I thought you got your shit together last week. No, I just announced it to everyone and then didn't do it. Like silly stuff like that that just made me giggle. I read like a couple each night before going to bed, and it just like added some humor to the end of my day. And then I read Cold Snap by Lindy Ryan. So this one I gave 3.5 stars. This one is like taking place around Christmas, where basically Christine's husband Derek tragically dies. She asked him to put up like Christmas lights or something, and he falls, and she like couldn't get to him and save him in time, and so she feels incredibly guilty about this. So instead of just staying home for the holidays, what she does is she ends up like packing up her 15-year-old son and their cat, and they all like go to this cabin that the family already had booked. And Christine's guilt just kind of like gets the best of her, and just like really gruesome stuff happens. I will mention that there is a gruesome animal death in this, so if you're not a fan of animal deaths, I would not recommend this book for you, because it does get pretty horrific and like very detailed about it. But overall, I thought the story was like a good horror and very a very interesting take on grief horror, which is something that was like pretty new for me. Then I read Catch the Sun, which ended up being my 200th book of 2024. And yes, so like I did quickly get to my 200th book, because I did read a lot of arcs that were like children's books or graphic novels and things like that. But a lot of people still count these as books, so I did too. I don't know, I could be closer to like 150, 160 or something like that. I'm not going to go back and count, but I have read quite a bit of books this year. So anyways, this was my 200th book, which I wanted to be a full-length novel. And I thought it was funny that last year for my 100th book, I actually read a book by Jennifer Hartman called Still Beating. So I was like, well, this year, she can't let me down, right? She did not. So I read Catch the Sun, and 5 freaking stars. This was so good. I absolutely love the story. We fall in love very quickly with the 2 main characters. They are very like hell-bent on not letting their past define them. So each of them comes with like their own set of baggage and trauma and just like kind of crappy situations. There's very cutesy moments throughout the book where you see them like get together and pull apart and get together and pull apart. There are a lot of Winnie the Pooh references in this. I will say that. But this book is definitely one of those books that will like rip your heart out, stomp on it a little bit, piece it back together, put it back in, and then rip it out again, only for them to just like put it back in again. So you do get a happily ever after, but I really, really enjoyed this one, and I cannot recommend Jennifer Hartman enough. Okay, and then I have another kids book. So this is The Way in Dogtown. This is very much sung in the tune of the popular rhyme, like okay, so you know, you start off with things like, this is the way we brush our teeth, brush our teeth, brush our teeth early in the morning. And then you kind of go through what these dogs are doing throughout the day, and by the end you kind of see them winding down. So here we go. This is the way we go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. This is the way we go to sleep. Now the day is finished, and the dog's in bed. So it's a very cute kids book. Again, another book that I'll just kind of keep for a kids collection for hopefully one day when I have my own kids. This is a crafty book that I'm very happy that I purchased. So I used to be very, very into crochet. I made a lot of amigurumi, which are like these little plushies. So I thought, oh, why not get this amigurumi book? And it has 20 different patterns, and I will tell you, just based on looking at the patterns, so they give you lots of different variations. They give you like how to do the cheeks. There's even stuff about like the body poses and things, very detailed graphic pictures. They even give you some stuff in the beginning about the different tools that you might need to use. So for someone who really enjoys making amigurumi plushies, this is a really easy to follow book. And if you're looking to maybe create some different you know, just try something new, this is a great beginner's book, I would say. Gives you lots of great pictures, lots of really easy to follow instructions, and they even break it down into the different colors of yarn and stuff that you'll need. So Amigurumi Friends, y'all. I did get an advanced listener's copy of Everything We Never Knew by Julianne Hough and Ellen Goodlett, and it ended up being narrated by Julianne Hough. So I gave this 4 stars. This one, I had no idea what to expect, especially since the ratings on Goodreads were actually pretty low. Like, I think they were 3.18 or something like that. There are some content warnings I would suggest that people look at, such as difficulty conceiving, infertility, miscarriage. There is a mention of a drug-related overdose, death. There's some sexual assault and harassment that goes on, parental abuse, and then death of a child. So it's kind of one of those books that I wasn't sure how to describe it at first. I was like, oh, witchy sounds like the right word, but it's not really the right word. Spiritual is what I think I'd lie on. Basically, like, think crystals and energy healing. That's the kind of vibe this book offers. And the cover is stunning. It's so pretty. But this one I really, really enjoyed. If you are someone who's into literary fiction, I think that you will like this one. On the opposite hand, a book that I did not enjoy, I got another advanced listener's copy for What You Made Me Do by Barbara Gail Austin. This one also had semi-low ratings. This one's got a 3.35 on Goodreads. And this one I just gave like a 3-star. This was more like a family drama kind of book. So if you're someone who really enjoys like more of a character-driven story, which I generally do like, I just don't like family drama. Like, I don't care about that. There's also some weird stuff that goes on. It's very predictable. Like, I don't want to say certain words. I would definitely look up content warnings for this one too. But certain things happen in this book that you're like, yup, could have seen that coming. So I am not sure I would necessarily recommend this one. There's a lot of manipulation that goes on. One thing in particular I did not like about this, or maybe not necessarily not like about this book, but I don't like in general, is pregnancy on purpose by manipulation and lying. So like poking holes in condoms kind of thing. I hate that. Like, I don't want to read about that, and that is something that happens in this book. A book that I was really surprised by, this is actually a short story, like prequel novella kind of thing. So this is called Ghost a Parent by Jelena Donato, and I would kind of classify this as dark fantasy and mythology. Gave this one 4 stars. So basically, when Orsiana's father is killed after a coup, her uncle seizes the city, and Orsiana is essentially given the option to either like go into hiding and live a nice happy life kind of thing, or be killed. And Orsiana's like, neither. Like, you killed my dad. Like, what the heck? You're my uncle and you killed my dad. So she's basically thrown out and not given this happy life. They kind of leave her for dead, but she happens to make a deal with some gods and figures out her way to revenge and back to the throne. This one I really, really enjoyed. On NetGalley, labeled it as horror, but I don't think it had any true horror elements other than like the murder part, but it wasn't really that horrifying. I don't know, it's just murder. I had never heard of this book before, but it is a prequel to Dark Woods, Deep Water, and the author themselves said that you do not have to have any previous knowledge about the world or the characters. So like, you can read them in any order. I have not read Dark Woods, Deep Water, but I'm very interested in reading it now after having read Ghost a Parent. And the last book I am reading, I'm just gonna put it on the screen because I don't know how to say it. I'm contemplating DNFing it because I am at 80% currently at the time of filming this video, and I don't really care about it. I thought it was funny at first, and there are some funny moments, but I actually have a lengthy, I mean, it's several bullet points here of complaints. Like, the language that's being used, there's very repetitive phrases, there's some words that are not necessarily used these days, especially in the United States. Now, this book I think is set in the Philippines, so I don't know if there's something different going on there that's not going on here in terms of certain language, certain words being able to, I don't know, certain words being used. There was also a long list of different types of porn. I was like, okay. And there's like, just, I don't know, it seems very vapid and vain. I don't care about these characters. They're very unlikable, which I think the synopsis does say that they're pretty unlikable, or somebody I think there's only one review on Goodreads, and they said that they were pretty unlikable characters. But honestly, I have no idea who the narrator even is. Like, it seems like it switches in chapters, but you have no idea who is actually talking. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning somewhere between the 1 and 2 star range. 1 I usually reserve for like DNFs and stuff, and 2 is like I finished the book but I didn't really enjoy it. I'm probably like a 1.5 right now. So I'm just trying to finish it and see if it has any sort of redeeming qualities, or at the very least if I can give any kind of like additional complaints about this book for my review on Goodreads and NetGalley, but not really enjoying it so far. But anyways, I think I've had a successful week 2 and week 3. I'm excited to see what the fourth and a half week brings. I'm undecided if I'm gonna just do like the last week and a half all together or if I'll split them up again. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are, you know, at the end of the video not feeling very chatty, just leave me some book emojis. You know, I read a lot of books over the last couple weeks, so just leave some book emojis. Thanks for clicking on today's video and hearing me ramble about books, and I can't wait to catch you guys in the next one. Bye!